into powerlifting in kind of a random way when right before I got to Iowa, which was about 3 years ago. I had just started getting into strength training. I bought myself like a do-it-yourself kind of book for women that would debunk all of the girls get bulky when they lift sort of logic, and I was trying to learn how to lift. When I got to Iowa, I received a mass email from the Iowa powerlifting team, and it talked about how the 3 main lifts were squats, deadlifts, and bench press. And these were the 3 lifts I was focusing on in that little do-it-yourself book. So I thought I would go check out the Iowa powerlifting team, and I went to the first meeting, and that is pretty much how I got into it. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I don't have a very big family. I have, my mom and dad. I have 1 sister. She is married and she has 2 children, so I have 2 nieces. And then I have my grandparents on my mom's side in Arizona, and my dad's brother and his family in Arizona, and that's it in Arizona. They think that powerlifting is cool. It's kind of like a random thing. They never expected me to do something like that. But at the same time, with the way that I grew up, my dad always, he always took us out riding quads and camping and doing things that weren't, I guess, stereotypically girly. I didn't really grow up that way. So powerlifting is not really a stereotypically girly sport. It's definitely not dominated by females by any means. So it wasn't super surprising that I would, pick up something like that. But I also didn't really do many sports when I was younger. I was mostly a theater geek, a student body, student government type of person in high school. So this is probably the first, real sport I've done. I went to law school at the University of Iowa College of Law, and I graduated in May 2015. What made me decide to go to law school is the job that I had after undergrad. I was a math major in undergrad, and when I graduated, I was torn between pursuing a PhD in applied mathematics or going to law school. And instead of just picking one and running with it and then maybe regretting my decision later on, I instead worked for a small collections agency. I was their office manager, and I did both the accounting work, which is kind of how I use my math background. I would keep up all the books, but then I also got to see a more legal aspect of it and get files ready to go to collections to send to different law firms that we would seek help with in collecting different accounts. And that's when I really realized that I liked the legal aspect more, the contracts, that sort of stuff. That was just really interesting to me. And I knew that I could still use my math degree and the experience I had with, that type of logic while in law school. So that's what ultimately made my decision. So after 3 years working for that company, I finally went to law school, and that's how I ended up here in Iowa City. Training for powerlifting while in law school was very difficult. I basically wasn't able to train productively until my 3rd year of law school. I did get involved with the University of Iowa powerlifting team my 1st year, but just the 1st year of law school is awful, ask any law student. And it was hard to keep a training schedule. A lot of weeks I couldn't train. It just wasn't very productive. Although my lifts did go up with the coaching and the help that I received from members, it was just very difficult. But my 3rd year, I was able to finally, one, it gets easier because you figured law school out, and then, but secondly, I was able to just time manage way better than I had before, and I was actually able to stick to a real training schedule. So for the past 8 or 9 months or so, I've actually been able to train consistently and with more of a purpose. So my lifts have become much better than they were the first 2 years of law school, but it was very difficult to try to schedule that in. I think powerlifting adds to my productivity because it's something that I want to do, and I want to make sure I schedule time for it. So therefore, I have to get everything else out of the way. You know, like right now, I'm studying for the bar exam. I have to make sure I get my studying in. I can't just, you know, take the 8 hours that I'm supposed to do that day and expand it to take all day, because I want to be able to get into the gym and I want to be able to lift. And I think that in my career later on, when I have to work a lot of hours the first few years, when you're kind of, you know, underneath the partnering attorneys, you know, you have, you know, if I want to make sure that I get to the gym, I need to make sure I get all my work done. So I think that instead of letting everything else just expand to fill the time I have available, I have to make sure that I'm more productive so I can, you know, still have time to do what I want. When I first started out powerlifting, I used the dabble programming. I just kind of dabbled in powerlifting whenever I could, and that didn't work, obviously. But when I actually started doing real programming this past year, I did Wendler's 5-3-1 for the fall semester, which was just this past fall. And I ran that for, I guess, 3.5 or 4 months. And it did work. My numbers did go up. And I ended up doing a meet with that, the mock meet here, not a real sanctioned meet. And then in this past spring, I ran Juggernaut, and that was really intense. That was super intense. It has a lot of volume, way more volume than I was used to with Wendler, because Wendler is mostly, it's sets of 5, 3, and 1 with AMRAPs. But Juggernaut, you do 3 weeks of sets of 10, 3 weeks of sets of 8, and then 5s and 3s, and it's way more, just way more volume. But it helped my lifts a lot more than the Wendler program. And I think that's just, you know, me personally, I do better with more volume and then cash in on that volume later. Whereas, you know, other people might do better with, you know, the lower sets or the lower reps in a set that Wendler has. Right now, I am doing a little bit of work with RPE training. I am not very good at RPE training yet. And I think that, you know, I'm still very new to powerlifting, relatively speaking, and it's really hard to, for anybody who knows what RPE training is, it's you try to judge your lifts based on your rate of perceived effort in the lift. And so an 8 might be you had 2 more left in the tank when you get done with a set, whereas a 10 might mean you had no more left in a set. So I have a hard time with pushing myself. When I'm under the bar and something feels heavy, I might think that I had, you know, 1 left in the tank, or that was absolutely all I had left. And then when you go back and look at it on video or someone watching, they're like, oh, those were super strong. Like, those were so fast, you probably had 3 or 4 more in the tank. So it's a matter of adjusting your mindset to know how hard a lift truly is for you. And so I've been working on that, and I haven't tested my lifts out for any sort of 1 rep maxes, but I know that my volume has gotten better. For example, I recently did a 5x3 at 235 when the most I've ever squatted is 250, and I've never done that much volume at that high of a percentage of my current max ever before. But since I'm learning to push myself more and you know, with the RPE training, I feel like that has really helped, and I really like it because it's more individualized for how I feel that day when I get to the gym. My favorite lift is the squat. I do not know why. It just is. I can give you reasons why the bench is not my favorite lift, but I don't know why the squat's my favorite lift.
Why don't you like the bench?
I feel I feel like I can't figure it out. I haven't gotten to the point where I've really figured out what I'm doing and why, and so it's frustrating. I have been working on it more and benching more times per week to try to fix that, but I think that because it doesn't come to me as easily as the squat, that's probably why it's not my favorite, and yeah.